1. The Archbishop of Toledo welcomes you today and would like to thank you for visiting Santa Maria la Blanca. Here, you will travel through almost 9 centuries of history, in which you can learn about the evolution of the construction of this synagogue to a church. You've entered through a large wooden door with Mudejar latticework and 10-pointed stars, which was installed during the late 19th century renovations under the protection of an eave. The entire set stirs up deep contemplation and passionate praise, as it did with Jewish people during centuries. According to what's been written in an inscription on one of its beams, the synagogue was built in 1180. After being severely damaged by a fire in 1250, Alfonso X the Wise granted permission in 1260 to rebuild the largest and most beautiful synagogue in Spain. Thus, it became the main synagogue of Toledo until 1411, when it was converted into a Christian temple. It was consecrated under the name of Santa Maria la Blanca, Saint Mary the White, due to the presence of an image of the Virgin, which is a copy of the image located in the choir of the cathedral. This image was held in the temple until 1791, when the building was converted into a military infantry barracks, which significantly degraded the monument. In 1554, the Salicio cardinal founded a beguinage inside the church under the invocation of Our Lady of Piety. The penance shelter welcomed repentant women. It was restored due to its poor condition in 1798 and became the repository of the royal treasury. The Provincial Commission of Historic Monuments restored it again in the mid-19th century. Local artisan Ceferino Diaz got involved in the project, which required touching up a number of the capitals due to their degraded state. It was declared a national monument in 1930. 2. As you've undoubtedly noticed by now, the building is an excellent example of fine Mudejar art. It has an irregular quadrilateral plan in which the chevet is oriented toward the east. Horseshoe arches on octagonal pillars separate the 5 naves and a second section of polylobulated arches. The roofs of the 5 naves are composed of an imposing larch wood frame. The stucco capitals that top the pillars stand out for their magnificent artwork, with decorations of ribbons, volutes, and pine cones. This last element relates to the people of Israel. Stop now in the arches and look at the scrolls formed by palmettes. In the narrow part of the arches, we can see discs with multiple geometric compositions. Vegetation and geometry evoke the image of the Creator's work in the cosmos and in nature. Up above, we can see adjoining friezes with 8 pointed stars and more decorative discs. The last one on the right of the central nave contains the famous Jewish sign of the Magen David, also known as the Star of David. I'll explain the meaning of this symbol later in the audio guide. Now, focus your gaze downward. 2 floors have been found here before the present one, which is from the 19th century. The original didn't survive. However, old ceramic remnants can still be found in this baked clay tile floor. The lower parts of some of the pillars are adorned with small pieces of pottery made using the dry rope technique. These are called alazars and date from the 16th century, around the time of the reshuffling of the Salicio cardinal. From the same period are ceramic strips or bands that form a pattern between the tiles. These were made using the Aras technique and covered in Renaissance patterns. The rest of the narrow strips have abstract motifs made using the dry rope technique. Those in blue and orange on a white background belong to the current era. The women would stand at the bottom of the central nave on a high wooden platform that no longer exists, although there are no Hispanic references of this layout. This wooden platform was on the same axis formed by the Hejal, or the Holy Ark, which is a small decorated cabinet where the scrolls are kept with a Torah parchment, as well as the Bima or the Almamar, which is the platform from where the Torah was read. The entire set stirs up deep contemplation and passionate praise, as it did with Jewish people during centuries. 3. The brilliant Toledo architect Alonso de Covarrubias designed the central chevet and the two lateral naves in the 16th century. He was trained by the hand of Anton and Enrique Igas, as well as Juan Gais, who provided him with the necessary knowledge to make inroads into the world of art. Covarrubias remodeled the chevet by creating 3 chapels. He covered them with scalloped shell-topped arches, including the entire dome in the central section and a quarter sphere on the sides, placed above squinches and pendentives respectively. Here, Nicolas de Vergara and Juan Bautista Vasquez the Elder were in charge of the altarpiece, that is now located in the main chapel of the Church of El Salvador in Toledo. Also from the 16th century are 17 graves, including those of 3 children, which were uncovered in the more recent excavations of 1989. The 16th century renovations of the chevet destroyed the most important and valuable part of the synagogue. The hehel, or the niche for the Torah, was located here, and we can assume there was an inscription on the foundation of the building. In this main chapel, the pointed horseshoe arches of the original building that connected the 3 central naves have been discovered. On both sides of the main door on the west wall, the remains of some of the fresco paintings, with red ochre on white background, have recently been found, with drawings of ribbons tracing chains and circles, the head of a snake and fishes. These remains belong to a Mudahar building that came before the synagogue, which probably had been destroyed during one of the renovations of the prayer hall to facilitate its expansion. The paintings have been linked to others, such as those in the chapel of Brihuega Castle from the mid-13th century, the late 12th to early 13th century Tower of Hercules of Segovia, and on the apse of the early 13th century Christ of Light in Toledo, where the same fish motifs appear. 4. The Star of David, which is known in Hebrew as the Magen David, is a recognized symbol throughout the world and is generally associated with the Jewish religion. Such designation is far from arbitrary, given that, according to Judaism and Israeli traditions, it comes from the Song of Songs, also called the Canticle of Canticles, a book of the Old Testament attributed to King Solomon. The 2 superimposed or entwined triangles of the Israelite star refer to a biblical verse that is particularly well appreciated in Judaism. It symbolically expresses the intimate relationship between humanity and God. I am my beloved, and my beloved is mine. As for the 6 points of the Star of David, the number 6 was perceived symbolically and mathematically as a perfect number in both the Middle Ages and ancient times.